Hello, this is Florence from Lean for You, a consultancy dedicated to process optimization, training programs, coaching and mentoring. Large or small, chronic or crisis, adversity happens. Part of life is to manage the demands of stressful events, and we obviously differ in the way in which we deal with difficult situations. In general, we can differentiate between helpful and unhelpful ways of dealing with difficult situations. And while some people give up and succumb to their despair, others persist and face life's biggest challenges with hope and resilience. Resilience is associated with qualities such as inner strength, competence, optimism, flexibility, and the ability to cope effectively when faced with a challenge. Resilience is not something that you have or you don't have. It actually means a lot working on yourself, and it involves behaviors, thoughts, and actions that can be learned and developed in anyone. What can increase our resilience is minimizing the impact of risk factors such as stressful life events, and also enhancing the protective factors such as optimism, social support, and active coping. So resilience is about bouncing back, it's about coping with adversity. But how do you develop your resilience? There are plenty of tools, methodologies nowadays, but there is one thing that maybe you want to start with, which is actually to become aware of what coping style is it that you're using to handle a situation, difficult situation, and maybe learn a more adaptive way of coping if needed. Research has identified 4 main coping styles. 2 that are adaptive or helpful when you deal with a difficult situation, and 2 others that are not so adaptive or not such helpful when you deal with difficult situations. Active coping is one of the first 2 adaptive or helpful coping styles. This is when you take responsibility and look for options. This is when you try to take charge of the situation and your emotions as much as possible. And if the situation can't be changed, you still deal with your emotions. Surrender, this is another adaptive or helpful coping style in that you can let go of things you cannot control. You take responsibility for what is under your control, but are also aware of the limits of your control. Now, passive coping or under control, this is a maladaptive style. This is when you are not taking charge of the things that happen in your life. Although there are steps you could take to change things or deal with your emotions, you're not taking these steps. And then finally, the 4th coping style, over control. This is when you spend too much time and effort trying to figure things out or make them work or go your way. You are afraid that if you don't rigidly control things, they will turn out badly. When you over-control things, you overestimate the effect of your actions. You believe there is more you can do than you actually can do to change things. So how can we use these 4 main coping styles? Well, this is what we're going to see now through an example. So this tool or exercise is about understanding the different ways of coping with challenging life events. Step number 1. You describe a current challenging situation. I've just been laid off. Step number 2. You consider your thoughts about your ability to cope with this situation. You observe your thoughts. For instance, has the thought, "Why does this happen to me?" crossed your mind? Write down as many thoughts as you have had and can remember about your ability to deal with this current challenge. Step number 3. For each thought, ask yourself which of the 4 coping styles does this thought belong to. For example, "Why does this happen to me?" belong to the passive coping style. Step number 4. Ask yourself whether this thought is helpful or not. So for each of your thoughts, consider whether the thought is helpful or not. That is, do you or don't you believe that this thought will help you deal with the situation effectively by either changing the situation itself or your feelings about it? Step number 5, and maybe the most important one, for all those thoughts that you identified as not helpful, try to reframe them into more helpful, adaptive thoughts. So for example, although this is a difficult situation, many positive things happen to me. And then finally, the last step, which is about reflection. So maybe you want to ask yourself 4 questions. First, how was it to do this exercise? What did you learn? What could be the consequence of changing your thoughts? And finally, what steps could you take to change the way you cope with challenges? So as a conclusion, you may not always be able to change a difficult situation, but you can always change the way you respond to it. And becoming aware of what coping style you are using when you face a difficult situation can definitely be the first step to take when you want to build your resilience. If you want to know more about resilience, or if you want to know more tools to build your self-resilience, I invite you to reach me out through my webpage. In the description of the video, you will find a link. And you are also more than welcome to join my group in Telegram, which is Link for You. Thank you, and see you to the next video.